Welcome to Growing Your Firm, brought to you by Jetpack Workflow. We're here to help firms unlock the secrets to help you reach your goals faster. And now, here's your host, founder and CEO of Jetpack Workflow, David Cristello.
Hey everybody, David Cristello here, founder and CEO of Jetpack Workflow and host of Growing Your Firm podcast. Today's guest is Tammy D. She is the CEO and founder of the FTC Group. We're going to get into not only how she launched that firm, but how she's creating systems and process, how she's thinking about team resourcing, both kind of onshore and offshore. We're going to get into time off and how do you manage that, hopefully in a peaceful way. We're going to talk about when and how she sold her first firm and so much more. But first, Tammy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, well, this is very exciting stuff. It's always good to have somebody from the Jetpack community come on the show. Well, the first question I have, we're going to get into the FTC Group, but to rewind a little bit, tell us a little bit about the Turning Leaf Solutions firm that you started. What were you doing and what types of clients were you serving?
Initially, I was working full-time as a controller / CFO for a very large construction firm. And I made a lot of contacts with tax accountants and payroll advisors and processors. And I had a tax accountant reach out to me and ask me for help because he knew I loved the details and digging in and fixing things. And he had a client that he couldn't even finish the return because it was such a mess, just the books. And he just reached out and said, "Can you just help me clean this up?" And I was like, I can't. I'm working full time. And he said, "Just give it a shot." And so that's how it started. I helped out with that client. And then he just kept referring more and more and more of his clients. So I was working at lunch, working at night, working in the morning, on the weekends, and doing my full-time job. And it got to a point where I had to make the decision, do I keep this, lifestyle? Can I? Or do I just take the plunge and start my own firm? And that's when it started. And it was right about the first recession in 2008. And I jumped right before the recession. And we were going to do everything remotely anyway, because that was all I could do at the time. And so I started the company. I hired essentially moms that wanted to work at home and pick up their kids in the afternoon and have more available time. And that was my workforce. And we grew and grew and grew because we just continued to get more and more referrals from, payroll, tax guys, law guys, everyone in the community. We were working with technology, construction, software development, real estate. Essentially, anyone that knocked on our door became a client because I just really enjoyed fixing the messes. And that's what usually came to us initially. But as you can imagine, never saying no leads to very quick burnout. So we did this for about 10 years. I grew to a staff of, I believe we were at 7, and just made the decision that I couldn't physically, mentally, emotionally do it any longer. And I reached out to several of the public accounting firms in the area that we worked with, and just they all knew our clients. They knew how our structure was, and eventually worked out a deal with one of them and sold the whole company and went to work with a client. And that.
Do you have any regrets about selling it, or was it exactly what you
No,
wanted?
not at all. Not at all. It was the model at that time was just not working because it all relied on a lot relied on me, and it was just too much because my personality at that time would just never say no, and just taking on so much work, it's never good. And sometimes you have to find out the hard way, but I have no regrets at all.
So because all the work was so, for lack of a better word, focused on you, after you sold, did you have a earnout period, a retention period post-sell, or how did that look once everything got signed?
I'm trying to think, we had about 6 months that I was available to answer questions and, just do whatever they needed within reason. And unfortunately, several of the clients left after I left, and because they were used to a certain type of customer service.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't get that in a large firm like you do in a small firm. And going to work for one of our clients, they were thrilled because they got us 100% of the time. And then I think I had a 2-year clause to be able to go back to any of the clients.
Okay. So you went on this growth curve, 10 years, turning leaf solutions. You didn't say no to anyone. You fixed messes. It was successful from a growth perspective, but not very successful maybe from a sanity perspective, it sounded like. And you were able to find a
Right.
great landing pad for the firm. And you went to work with one of the clients. So what have you done differently knowing, you're 10 years, you had a nice, sounds like a nice win. You learned a lot. Now you launched the FTC Group. What was different? What kind of differences did you make day one to solve some of the challenges you had at your prior firm?
I guess the biggest thing was to find the niche that we like. Who do we like to work with?
Mm-hmm.
What kinds of industries are interesting to us and that we're really good at and have fun doing rather than taking everyone. And so that was probably the biggest takeaway for me is saying no and feeling confident in myself to do that. Then, we're going to sustain and survive because the business will come and it'll be what we want it to be, not just come on down everyone.
Yeah. And so your focus was on cannabis day one. Is that right?
We actually have 2 companies. So one is cannabis, which is FTC Group, and the other is Summit Accounting Partners, which is everything that is non-cannabis. So in there is construction and real estate. And those are the other 2 industries that I love. I always have. They're just so interesting. So I have 2 separate companies. Cannabis is always kept separate just because of all the federal regulations around it. But initially, I did not want to go into cannabis. I didn't want anything to do with it. And the more I researched, I discovered just how intriguing the industry is, how complex the accounting is, and thought, well, maybe this is what I need to do. So I jumped in head first. It was difficult at first because my family wasn't very on board. My friends didn't want to hear about it. My coworkers, no one wanted to come and work with me. It was just stay away. I don't want anything to do with it. We're in North Carolina. That's just how it is. And the more that I got into it, the more I talked about it and taught people what we're doing. Now everyone wants to come work for me. And they tell their friends. They're happy to share it with their family. So it's in the last 5 years, it's been a definite about face, which I think is great for the industry, great for our state if we can ever get there. But I mean, it's been awesome. I've learned so much that I would have never come across before.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, because the AICPA, you said you were going to go speak at a cannabis specific event through the AICPA. So, I mean, it clearly reached a level of industry acceptance where not only is there an event at the AICPA, but hey, you're speaking at it, which is, kudos to that. Hey everyone, David Cristello here, of course, host of the Growing Your Firm podcast and founder CEO at Jetpack Workflow. I want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, LiveFlow. Now, we know building financial models can be frustrating, time consuming, and an error-prone exercise. Well, it's time to say goodbye to manually entering financial data. Embrace automatic updates and streamline financial management. Here's the good news. LiveFlow just launched a new consolidation product. Their automated multi-entity consolidation is simple to use. You can easily map multiple unmatching chart of accounts from multiple QuickBooks Online companies into one standardized report. Now, once it's set up, LiveFlow automatically updates the consolidations in real time so you can focus on analysis using instantly updated data across those entities. LiveFlow can even consolidate financials that are in different currencies. And the possibilities don't stop there. LiveFlow empowers you with flexible, powerful reporting tools to create customized dashboards that meet your specific needs. Build executive presentations, cash flow forecasts, and more with just a few clicks. To stop grueling over manual consolidation reports, visit liveflow.io, that's liveflow.io, and use promo code JETPACK for 20% off. All right, let's get back to the show. Well, I'm curious, since you have these two firms, then we'll dig into, how you're managing team, onshore, offshore, and company processes. How do you split your time between these two entities? Is it vary week by week? Do you have like a clear wall, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm working on this one. Tuesday, Thursday, I'm doing this one. Or how do you kind of juggle these two entities?
Usually FTC is every day, all day.
Okay.
It's a lot. It's a lot of work. And the other entities are more centralized by certain projects during the week and certain, like billing once a month and month end, things like that. So we have enough staff members to allocate the work so that, we can keep up with all the work for both companies with Jetpack. And I don't know how we do it without, to be honest.
So unpack that a little bit. How have you structured your processes and systems within Jetpack? And of course, somebody's listening, you can rinse, repeat probably to, a spreadsheet or something else like that. Of course, though, we're both fans of Jetpack. But how have you set it up to kind of reach that point where you have that control in your firm?
We have all of our clients, no matter which company they're in, set up as clients. And then we have which company just for our purposes. And then all of the tasks or jobs and tasks are listed for all of the clients, whether it be weekly, daily, monthly, quarterly. It makes it very easy to move things around because, you just attach a name to it. And if someone's on vacation, we just move their task to someone else for that week or that day or whatever the time period is. I guess the other big feature is just being able to monitor it. Jetpack is either good or bad for the micromanagers of the world. For me, it's wonderful because I can watch it all day. And that's what I do.
And what are you specifically looking at, like every day?
Completion.
Like completion, yeah.
Completion. So what I like is how the system allows you to filter. So I'll filter by person and see how they're progressing throughout the day on their daily tasks. Because, as we all know, sometimes you get in a bind and you get caught up with something that you can't finish that maybe was supposed to take 30 minutes and it's 3 hours. And maybe we still have 5 other projects that need to get done today. So because of that, I can monitor throughout the day and move work around between our staff if need be, or maybe it's something that we can do tomorrow. But I watch it all day long. And at the end of the day, everyone has to leave notes as to if something isn't finished, what's the plan? Why didn't it get finished? What's the plan for the next day? Do you need help? And it's all within the system so that I can see it. And that is a huge help for me as a manager, owner, to be able to monitor the big picture because our staff is only seeing their portion and they don't realize, there's 5 other people that make sure that all this work gets done daily. It just allows us to communicate better, I think.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you mentioned we were talking about it, pre-show. You're gearing up for multi-week trip, and so what's the plan of attack? Who's doing the monitoring? While you're out, who's doing the pruning? It sounds like there's a lot of pruning and tweaking, and people might be getting like a label to say it's stuck or behind or waiting on a client or you're right. So who's going to be your redundancy while hopefully you're totally unplugged and just enjoying a little break?
I have one staff member that she's not very excited about it, but she's going to take over
Give it a
and
shot.
be in charge. What I've already done, it was kind of weird. I went through Jetpack for the time period that I'm going to be gone and moved everything so that my Jetpack is totally clear for the time frame. It's never looked like that. So that was kind of odd for me not to see all my tasks, but just to be able to move jobs and tasks to other people with the click of a button, essentially. And then for them to be able to see it in advance. And if there's something they're not clear about, maybe it's a task they've never done, they'll be able to know what's coming to them and reach out before I leave to say, I'm not exactly certain about this. Can we go through it? So one of the things that we utilize a lot because we're all remote are videos. And we use Loom to do videos for essentially every task in our company for every client. And we're able to now do a video, save the video in the task or the job with Jetpack, make it recurring so that whoever is looking at that job going forward will see that video. And that has made a huge difference for us. We just had a new person start from an offshore company, and she's in India. Then she starts about 2 hours before we log on. And we've been able to train her essentially with everything within her scope that she needs with a video. And so now we're using videos and trying to translate those into full blown SOPs so that we have some people don't learn well with videos. Some people like written word better. So we want to make sure we have both of those options and to know that what you've done is benefiting someone else, that they can just come right in from another country and understand exactly what you're doing. To me, that says it all, that somehow we're doing something right to be able to train someone that quickly.
Yeah, I love it. We're gonna dig into offshore here in, in a second, but I want to circle back to the comment you mentioned a few minutes ago, which is, sometimes you think it'll take 30 minutes, but it actually takes 3 hours. So, what is the prescriptive process for your staff to kind of communicate when something's at risk or going beyond scope or it's going sideways? Are they changing the labels on the job? Are they mentioning you? Like, 'cause I'm asking this because sometimes, like, certainly in a remote work environment, things can get hidden, right? So, oh, this has been a problem. How long has it been a problem? Since Monday. Well, today's Friday. Why am I
Yeah.
just learning about it now? It's been a problem the whole week, or it's been a problem 2 weeks. And it sounds like you don't have that issue where problems are just festering or sitting. So how is this being clearly communicated up to you that there is a challenge?
Mainly we use the notes section within the job of Jetpack and just use that as our communication tool. So, if you use the notes, it'll send an email directly to me or whomever you choose. So typically they'll come to me and I'll receive the email to know there's an issue. And then we communicate using the notes within Jetpack so that they're always contained within the system. And I can refer back to, oh, now I remember there was an issue with Charlie forgot to give us XYZ. Let me call Charlie. So keeping it within the system rather than in email, where if I'm getting 300 emails in a day, I'm going to lose it.
Yeah.
But if it stays in Jetpack and the job is not completed or marked completed until it's actually finished, it'll sit there and I'll see it. My staff will see it. And they have gotten to where they don't want anything past due on their Jetpack. It drives them crazy. So, they work even harder to make sure it goes away and the job
Yeah.
is finished.
Yeah.
So we
Well,
we try to keep everything within the system, all of our communication.
great, great. Final question here. So, do you utilize estimates time estimates on the work, or are you just
No.
looking at ratios of jobs like somebody should be able to handle either these many clients or this level of services in a given week?
Yeah, we're typically assigning based on skill set. So we may set up a job, for example, month end close for someone, and you may have my section, which is the higher level review and some of the more complex reconciliations. Then we may have a mid level staff that handles some of the reconciliations, and maybe a lower staff or, someone in a different department has maybe a smaller piece, but we're all within the same job. We just have different tasks. And I like the setup that way because I want everyone to be accountable. Because if Susie can't finish her portion, then I don't finish my portion, and then the job doesn't get completed. So a lot of people would rather have just their piece
Mhm.
as a job so they can complete it. But I want everyone to see how that we all work with each other and we rely on each other. So I want one job so everyone can see how important their role is. And it allows us to reach out to each other and say, "Hey, when are you going to finish this? What's the issue?" Because we're all together.
Yeah. Well, is it through this constant communication loop that indicates to you when you should be hiring? Like, is that kind of how you get data when the team's at maybe full capacity? Is they're kind of raising their hand and saying, "Look, the reason it's not getting done is because we brought on those 3 new clients and now I'm crunched." Is that the main method of like understanding resourcing or when you need to hire?
Yes, we have had, for example, with one of our large clients, as they grow, we essentially have to grow. And oftentimes there's additional workload that wasn't there, and it has to be done. It's not an option to say, "Yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that part of it. We're just going
Yeah.
to keep with this." And if I see tasks and jobs that aren't getting completed in time, or we continually have issues with, "Well, I couldn't get that done today. I'll try to get it done tomorrow." Then I know it's time, something is wrong. And that's what happened recently with, there's so much workload on my plate that maybe I need to move down, but I can't because that person has too much and there's no one else to move it to. We're trying to shuffle work around, but there was no one to shuffle to. And like I said, you just can't tell your current clients, "We don't have time."
Right.
So
So you mentioned the outsourced hire. How many offshore team members do you have? And I'm curious the firm you used, if you feel comfortable saying it, and if you would recommend them. I'm curious
sure.
how that all works.
Currently, we have one full-time employee, and the company that we are working with is Integrity, and they were I've received emails from them in the past and just, delete, because I honestly did not see how it would work. Maybe there might be communication issues or time issues. I just didn't see how it would work. And then when I realized we had a true need for another staff member, I just decided, rather than going through Indeed and dealing with all that here, I was just going to give it a shot and just talk to them. I was extremely impressed by their communication, how they were so organized, and follow up. That was what was very impressive for me. And to be able to just send them a job description. And I've had 4 people within 2 days to start interviewing, and they facilitated the interview process, had everything ready, suggested questions for these people. So it was really helpful in the beginning. And, I'd always thought there would be a communication issue, but now that we're involved, it really isn't. And it kind of made me think a little bit about my accent and how people might struggle understanding me. So to be more open minded and, give people a break, with their accents and things. And that's why I think our videos are good, because they can be transcripted and be seen, as word as well. So that has been helpful. But I don't even know what to say. They're wonderful. I have totally enjoyed working with them and would highly recommend working with them.
That's fantastic. It made me think when you talked about transcribing videos or this transcription for the videos. This is so random, but my head of marketing just sent over. There's all these new AI tools that are doing all these wonderful, interesting things.
That GPT.
Yeah, but there is a tool, he had sent over, and if I can't find it quickly, I'll try to follow up with you. But I figured the audience would like it as well. I think it's called. Let me see if I could quickly bring it up. If not, swellai.com. So SWELLAI.com. Full disclosure, we have not used this tool yet, but what we are going to be testing it out. And what it does is you can upload videos or audio content and $30 a month. And I don't know where the limit is on how much you can upload. It will create, promises to create seamless transcriptions, from this. So instead of even having,
that would be ideal.
Yeah, instead of having these transcriptions, paid out for, sometimes, by the word, you sometimes have to pay for these things. You could take Loom to the next level. I love that idea. And even Loom has started to build out their little AI capabilities where you upload a video and then they try to transcribe it automatically.
Yes.
So there's a wonderful world happening, I think, in kind of SOPs and process and things like that. But anyways, we'll get off the tool bandwagon for a second. Tammy, this has been a real treat. If somebody wants to reach out to you, ask you questions, learn a little bit more about your firm, follow up with something that you mentioned today, what's the best way for our community to connect with you?
Probably email at tammy@ftcgroupllc.com.
All right, very cool. Well, if you were listening to today's interview, you can jot down all the notes. We're going to link up everything. We're going to hyperlink up, some of the firms that Tammy was talking about at jetpackworkflow.com/blog. That's jetpackworkflow.com/blog. If you enjoyed today's interview, leave a 5-star review. It helps us get a word out. And if you really enjoyed it, if Tammy said something, you're like, oh, I should be doing Loom videos, or maybe I should explore offshoring, or I should think about niching down, or I should think about organizing my workflow in a certain way. If anything sparked an idea, share it with a fellow firm owner that might need to hear this type of information. I know that's a great way to say thank you to Tammy for carving out the time today. Tammy, it's been a real treat. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining Growing Your Firm, the podcast series for global, small, and medium-sized businesses ready to scale and increase profits. You can check out more podcasts by following the links in the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening. At Jetpack Workflow, we're all about maximizing returns for accounting firms and CPAs. Check out more podcasts on growing your firm and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.